Dr. Allison, we have an 8-part lecture course, The Quest for the Historical Jesus. Can you tell us what this course is about?
Well, it's really about the last, I suppose, about 250 years of scholarship on the historical Jesus. But it begins before that. It actually begins with the Reformation, because I think that the quest for the historical Jesus, if you look at its genealogy, actually goes back to Protestant criticisms of Roman Catholic doctrines, Roman Catholic texts, Roman Catholic claims to miracles. The early Protestants are pretty skeptical and critical when it comes to all sorts of religious traditions. And that sort of skepticism, that leeriness about miracle claims and so on, eventually moves into the deistic movement and the Enlightenment and so on, and sets the stage for the first person I discuss in the class, who's a German who was actually a pastor named Reimarus. And then I just look at what happens from Reimarus pretty much to the present. So it's from Reimarus to John Dominic Crossan, and looking at the major figures in between, what exactly they said, why they said it, and what the responses were to them. The major figures, at least in the first half of the class, are all German, because that's where most of the interesting stuff was done for the first century or little more, and then finally we get some British and American scholars at the end of the course and bring it up to date. But it's a survey of the whole quest for the historical Jesus, focusing on 10 to 12 major figures.
Is it safe to say that anyone who studies New Testament, interested in biblical theology, biblical research, and trying to figure out what Jesus might have said or what he might have done, or the history behind what scholars think today, and how this would be an important course to go and watch?
Well, I hope so. So first of all, I don't think you ever understand anything without knowing its history. So if you want to know who a human being is, heck, that's what psychologists do. They go back and look at their history, maybe even back to childhood. If you want to know what the field is like today and what people are doing and why they say certain things, you need to know what people were discussing before them and why they were discussing it and so on. So the big picture is always important. It's just like, I don't know, if you want to talk about the United States right now and its political problems right now, I don't really think you can do it without talking about going back at least as far as the Civil War, for example, and looking at the fallout from that, and looking at the Civil Rights Movement, looking at World War II and the Vietnam War and so on. Anyway, to understand the present, you just have to understand the past. And it's the same thing with any area of scholarship. And I actually think that to think otherwise is just very foolish. It's not only to miss the genealogy and the setting and the context for everything and understanding where it comes from. It's also to make the modern technological mistake of always assuming that the new is the best, or you should only be watching the new shows or listening to the new music or whatever. But there was a lot of good music in the past, and there were lots of good shows in the past, and there were lots of good books that still repay reading. I spend my time as often as not in older books as opposed to contemporary books and articles. So for many reasons, I think this history and the figures in it are really important.
Which characters in history were your favorite? If you could pick 3, because I know that's hard.
3?
I'll give you 3. Out of the 3 of the historical quest of Jesus that you do in this course, really, which ones are your favorite?
Oh my, so I don't know that I can answer that question. I'll do so, but I don't know that it's an honest answer, because I'd have to sit here and think about it, and I wasn't prepared for this. I suppose of all these people, Albert Schweitzer is my favorite. He's my favorite for multiple reasons. He was a great writer. He was a brilliant person. I also share some of his views about Jesus. He was just a brilliant person. I actually think of him as a sort of mutant, somebody who had more energy and more intelligence and more just about everything than the rest of us. So he's always been an intellectual hero, but he's also, for me, a moral hero. David Friedrich Strauss, is another hero, but not on ethical grounds, not because he's a moral hero or because his life was that interesting. He's not like Schweitzer in that respect. He's also not quite as good a writer, although he was a decent writer. I simply find his big book on Jesus, his critical life of Jesus, to be endlessly fascinating and it just endlessly repays my attention. So I pull it out all the time. It was originally published before 1850, and I think it's still really, really helpful. Strauss knew how to see things. He had the attention to detail. And I really, really value that. Somebody who can see things, most of the time we see and don't see. He saw, he looked, and he really saw. I suppose the third person I'd have to cite here is Joachim Jeremias. And the reason for that has to do with my own history. It's just sort of personal. He was one of the two people when I was a teenager who really turned me on to this field. He was constantly citing Jewish sources to explicate Jesus, and I thought it was fascinating. He pulled me in, and I do remember fantasizing once when I was mowing the lawn as a teenager, thinking, when I grow up, what I want to do is write books about Jesus like Jeremias, and I've been able to do it. So from that point of view, maybe he was a sort of inspiration. He certainly got me really hooked into this field. So there you go, 3 people.
You did it. I'm glad. I'm proud of you. I hope that people will take the time to actually go and check out our course, because it's not only well laid out, it's extremely organized, it's beautiful. Lots of extra reading material you can study and find your way through. This is just lecture 1 that I'm scrolling here through to give people an idea. And then of course you have the videos that are in 4K, and they are beautiful. I can promise you they are beautiful. And there's a lot of content to learn. I hope that people will check it out, lectures 2. And of course, as you go through the course, it literally tells you your progress, how far you are in the lectures. And I hope that more people will go and check out this quest for the historical Jesus. So be sure to sign up for sure. Dr. Allison, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you expressing that. I thank you. I hope people will sign up. I think this is an important topic for both people on both sides of the spectrum. Specifically in my audience, you're going to find both Christians and probably apologists that are looking to respond to skeptics such as myself or people I have on, and then those skeptics. And I thought your course was so well balanced and just such a great resource for both people to try and understand. We're all humans trying to figure this out. And do you have any final comments?
Well, we all have agendas, right? We all have agendas, but agendas don't prevent you from doing history, from looking back and figuring out what happened. And they also don't prevent you from putting forward arguments. And at the end of the day, the arguments are the things that matter, right? Not the agendas of the people behind them, because they're what we can debate in public, and the arguments are what push things forward.
Thank you so much.